welcome to the capital of Germany and Berlin. Formula E returning once again, as it has done every year since the very first season back in 2014-15. This historic city with the Brandenburg Gate and the Berlin Wall is really iconic, not only around the globe, but also, of course, in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. And it is the 7th and 8th rounds of the season this weekend. Just a couple of miles south of the centre there, Alexanderplatz and the TV Tower, we have Templehof Airport, the disused airport where Formula E has been racing now for 9 years in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. This is the 2023 SABIC Berlin E-Prix. Very much looking forward to this weekend getting underway because we are approaching / crossing the halfway point of the season, because we started in Mexico City a little earlier this year in January, and then we have got a couple of races in Diriyah, both run by Pascal Wehrlein, Jean-Eric Vergne winning in Hyderabad, Antonio Felix da Costa winning in Cape Town, and Mitch Evans winning a month or so ago in Sao Paulo, Brazil. After this double-header, a trip to Monaco, double-header in Jakarta, a race in Portland for the first time, and then double-headers in Rome and London round out the 16-race 2023 Formula E season. Drivers have been rocking up this morning, nice and early. Edo Mortara and Jake Dennis arriving together. Antonio Felix da Costa for the Porsche team, looking to continue his strong run of form at the moment. The DS Penske's look a little bit better in qualifying pace. Jean-Eric Vergne has won a race this year. Van Dorn was quickest in practice yesterday. The Jaguar drivers arriving also, and the Envision men, Cassidy and Buemi and Pascal Wehrlein, all smiles as he arrives, even though it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, or it was about 7 o'clock in the morning when he arrived an hour or so ago, because he's the man leading the championship. That's why he's all smiles. 86 points, hasn't had the strongest scores over the last 3 races, but still has a solid enough lead over Jake Dennis. Nick Cassidy's got him into 3rd spot, 4th is Jean-Eric Vergne, 5th is Antonio Felix da Costa. Those 4 drivers separated by just 4 points. Bit of a gap back to Bird, Buemi, Rast, Evans, but they're not out of the hunt just yet. Stoffel Van Dorn arguably is, 22 points for him. It's been a tough season for Lucas Di Grassi so far. Only a 3rd place in the opening race of the season is where all his points came from, basically. Günther, Muller and Freitz are the 3 drivers who are yet to get off the mark. As far as the teams are concerned, it is Tag Heuer Porsche who are at the top on 144 points. They are well clear at the moment of Envision. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in commentary this weekend, we've got the former F1 driver, former Audi team principal, Alan McNish. Another day in Berlin, but the drivers and teams, it's a circuit they know very well, but with new Gen 3 cars, new tyres, it's kind of a whole new learning experience again, I suppose.
You're right, Jack. It is. It's a circuit that everybody's got a lot of data on. However, with a new car, new tyre, and also with increased power as well, we've got to remember that with the Gen 3 car. It does mean that it's a learning process. And also this year, there's only 30 minutes yesterday and 30 minutes today before they go into qualifying. It's not a lot. It's going to be probably 35 laps in total for the drivers to get used to it. But the circuit itself has got a very long section in corners, so the 1, 2 and 3 leading down to turn 6 puts a lot of energy in the tyre, and also that final corner leading onto the start-finish straight. So I think this morning, with the cold track temperatures, it is chilly. You saw people in the pits there with hats on and things. Then you're going to see quite a lot of struggling to get these Hankooks up to temperature. The front turning in, and then the rear on exit when they put the power down. Some nice big power overslides. You'll like that in the morning.
Well, there's nothing better in the morning than a power overslide. Right, pit lane is open now, and rolling out goes Nick Cassidy in the Envision. Everybody keen to get out onto the circuit straight away. And as you say, that's the interesting part a little bit. Wait, there's some lighting up of the tyres from Jake Hughes. Everybody keen to get a bit of temperature in as quickly as possible. But that's kind of the thing with this free practice the day before, is you end up in very, very different conditions, especially in some of the, to be honest, Berlin maybe not too dramatic compared to some, because, you know, some countries it's really hot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then way cooler in the morning, but it is obviously cooler this morning than it was yesterday.
I think we've got to remember that normally this race was in June or August, historically, so therefore, as championship leader Pascal Wehrlein slowly, I think, just trying to get a gap before he then proceeds out onto circuit. But therefore, the track conditions are significantly different. One thing that's the same, there was a lot of complaints yesterday about the circuit being low grip, dusty, dirty. That's because it's only ever used from a racing point of view once per year for Formula E. All the rest of the time, it's kind of just open land with, you know, nothing on it.
Yeah.
And so therefore, the circuit will grip up. However, the temperature fluctuation even through the day will have an effect. And I expect it to be pretty quick this morning just because it's cooler, but it'll take them a few laps to get the tyres up to temperature. One of the problems we also saw yesterday. A lot of people here. Look to the right-hand side behind, that's the fan area. And already a lot of people at 8 o'clock in the morning crowding in for race day. Yeah,
it's a really cool buzz underneath that, that area.
And we are starting build lap, starting build lap.
Starting build lap, says Alan Cox to Jake Hughes. He and Rast out on circuit. And we've seen this a few times over the course of the, well, it's quite common over the course of the season that drivers will go out, build, and then push, maybe a couple of builds potentially. We're on board with René Rast here, weaving around to get some tyre temperature down towards the radar tower.
This is where the attack mode is on the right-hand side. You've got to then shoot straight through right to the edge of that blue, and that's where it is. But it's a fantastic overtaking opportunity, and it will be later on in the race. Right now, in flat-out lap, you brake as late as you can, but you can still see the car moving around underneath Rast as he comes through the fast left-right flick.
7 could be quite fun this weekend, I think, because it was already one of the quickest corners in Formula E, but with more power and harder tyres, could be an entertaining one this weekend.
Yeah, entertaining for you, not if you're in the car and it's going sideways on you. But as you can see, just accelerate, brake, trying to put energy into the tyres to start the push lap. So this should be Jake Dennis, and I would assume then René Rast as well, their first push lap.
Across the line come the McLarens, followed by Eduardo Mortara here, who has a big lockup on the way down into turn 1. Pole in both races last season, won one of them, finished second in the other, but and looked quick yesterday, to be fair. Yeah. The Maseratis and the DS Penske's both looking good. Mortara was 5th quickest, Günther 3rd quickest.
Okay, let's go for a double push. We monitor it and we advise if needed.
Double push, says Cyril Bleis to Max Günther, who's the head car here, coming down towards turn 7. Another man who's won here in the past.
Yeah, he was quick yesterday, Günther, and he also he was, you know, a couple of tenths. In fact, he was less than that. He was a few hundreds off quickest, but he had a couple of tenths in the pocket, as we see.
Roland.
One of the Mahindras off.
And I think he has just nudged the barrier there. You can see the Tech Pro a little bit dented in for Oliver Roland.
He's gone off at the first corner, locked up, I assume.
Team managers, we've got a car in the runoff in turn 1. Please obey the flags.
Yeah, just a little bit of advice to all of the drivers there from the race director, and he's locked up and gone into the Tech Pro. No damage really to the nose. Here we've got a replay.
Coming into the first corner.
No. That's a replay of what happened apart from this last part to Mortara. He did exactly the same about 30 seconds beforehand.
Yeah, Roland on the radio asking the team whether he should reset the car. You just wonder with Roland whether how much of that was a lockup and how much of that was a bit of a mechanical, because it's something we've seen with the Mahindras a few times this year, with the Abt team and Van der Linde and De Grassi, and everybody's had that issue of the car sort of pushing on.
Hello, okay, you have to go to P1, please. This is going to need a Williams reset, so we have to come and recover the car.
Cool.
A Williams reset, we'll have to recover the car, so that sounds like he won't be able to get going again. That was Tom Bales on the radio to Oliver Roland. 25 minutes and 10 seconds to go. Tictum's quickest at the moment on a 6.8, but that's a second slower than we saw yesterday in these early stages. Sergio Sede Camara's done a quick sector 1. Wehrlein now, well, looked like he was about to start a push lap, but still that yellow flag out there down at the first corner as Florian Modlinger.
Looks a bit cold there with the jacket zipped up.
And those big garages, and the red flag is out now. So red flag is out, so that'll give us a couple of moments, and they will remove Roland's car off the circuit, which hopefully shouldn't take too long, but frustrating for him and the rest of the team. 24 minutes and 25 seconds to go. The clock will keep ticking. Sometimes race control are able to extend the session if there is a red flag, but there's only a limited amount of time between free practice and qualifying, so it may be that they opt not. That tends to happen on a sort of Friday practice or a time where there's been a lot of interrupted practice, whereas got a good chunk of running yesterday, and if it only takes 5 minutes or so to clear up, then we sort of should be all right. But frustrating for Mahindra, having a tough season really, aren't they?
Yeah, very difficult season. Two things. One is that obviously they've had some problems, and as you said earlier on, Lucas de Grassi's third place at the beginning of the year being the highlight of it. After that, it's been a real struggle, but also they're supplying a customer team being Abt Cupra. And that also puts an extra effort and load onto it. It's not just your own problem, it's also your customer team's problem as well.
Yeah, so that was Paul Willett, by the way, that we saw on the cutaway to the Mahindra garage. And Jake Dennis back in the pit lane now for Avalanche Andretti. Second in the championship, no points in the last 3 races, but he's still there in second, still a point ahead of Nick Cassidy. So although it's been a tough 3 races for Dennis, he's still, you know, obviously in the championship fight. But they need to sort of start scoring points again fairly swiftly. He's been unlucky being wiped out in Hyderabad when it looked like he was going to win. Cape Town was a little anonymous, and then Sao Paulo as well, being hit out by Tictum, cost him a reasonable chunk of points. Again, wasn't quite at the front in Sao Paulo, but there was still a long way of the race to go. So Dennis was certainly impressive when I think he's
been impressive all year.
Yeah, he's proved himself. I think coming into Formula E, it's a bit like Jake Dennis. Where did he come from? A little bit, and he's really proven himself. Here's again a look at Roland.
It's just locked all the way in. And the fact that he didn't come off the brake to turn suggests that there was still a little bit of acceleration. Here's Tictum coming into the first corner, and you see it ahead, just that instant lock-up as soon as he hit the brakes. And it's a big, wide runoff area there. Yeah. You know, it's nearly into another city. It's that far away to hit the barriers. You've done a really good job, or had some sort of issue.
It's Paul Willett down at the bottom, and there's Fred Bertrand, the team principal, at the back. A change of tyres going on. Pascal Wehrlein's car. Championship leader.
Yeah, just take the opportunity. Tyres have to be changed in the actual pit box themselves. So now with this red flag, any sort of slightly longer changes you wouldn't normally do in a 30-minute session, then you can maybe think about, and that could be a spring change, roll bar, or something like that, because it's basically dead time anyway.
Have you had enough, when you've done 3 or 4 laps, though, at this time in the morning, have you learnt enough about whatever you've done overnight? How long does that take to sort of correlate?
Well, depends on the tyre in terms of how long it takes to heat up. And as we saw, there's a few people struggling with that. But in general, you get your first feeling very quickly. And it's not necessarily guaranteed fact on data lap time, but it is a feeling, and it's a sense. And that, if you're in tune with the car, which is sometimes quite a tricky thing, then it gives you a real feel. But there you see an actual driver's eye view, brilliant view from the inside of the helmet, and pixelated screen, but that screen's just absolutely full of data, and it is allowing the team and the driver to maximize the performance of the car throughout the race.
Roland getting towed back to the pit lane. Sasha Fenestraz in the Nissan, who's been impressive in qualifying so far this season, hasn't quite managed to turn it into a strong race result, thanks to many sort of unfortunate incidents. Pascal Wehrlein, the championship leader, second in the first race, won the next 2 in Diriyah, but hasn't picked out a huge amount of points since then. But still heading into his home race and Porsche's home race looking strong. Sebastian Buemi, a man slightly revitalized, I would say, this year, having joined the Envision team. Sergio Sede Camera, always a lot of fun to watch in the Neo 333 car, the man from Belo Horizonte. And Jean-Eric Verne, race winner in Hyderabad, second in Cape Town, 5th last time out in Sao Paulo, on a good run of form, scored the most points of anyone in the last 3 races as Jean-Eric Verne. And that's Jake Hughes in the McLaren on his first visit to the Berlin Templehof circuit as a driver, anyway, was here with Mercedes EQ last year as their reserve driver. Stoffel van Dorn, who's won in Berlin before, out for DS, and he was quickest yesterday. Lucas de Grassi in the Mahindra, another man who's won here twice before in Templehof. Norman Nato, a man who's won in Templehof as well. His one and only Formula E victory coming in the final race of season 7 when he was driving for the Venturi team, now in the cherry blossom adorned Nissan. And Roland is back in the pit lane then, so session will be getting underway fairly shortly, I would have anticipated, but frustrating times for Oliver Roland and de Grassi and everyone involved at Mahindra.
Okay, everybody, from race control, we're easily under 1 minute here. As soon as this car gets back in its garage, we'll go green. Thanks.
Message from Scott Elkins, the race director. There is his teammate, Roland's teammate, de Grassi, 12th in the championship at the moment, the 2017 Formula E champion. 18 points all from the opening race, where he got 15 for 3rd place and 3 points for a pole position. 4 poles in his Formula E career, but a remarkable 40 podiums. He's almost at a sort of 1/3. He's almost at nearly half, isn't he? 40 podiums in 105 races is remarkable, really. Remarkable.
Yeah, the one thing about Lucas was that you always knew that he would make his way through the field.
Yeah.
Didn't matter where he qualified. And say qualifying wasn't always his best attribute, but he still obviously put it on pole earlier on in the year as the session restarts with 17.5 minutes to go. But I always knew when he was in our team that there was without doubt he was going to go forward. Maybe a little bit of carnage on the way, but he was always going to go forward. And that was something I really appreciated.
Same sequence as before, out prep, double push.
Out prep, double push, Mitch Evans. So basically out a prep lap and then 2 push laps. So it'll be 4 laps in total, suggesting that actually the 4th lap is going to be the one where the tyres are optimum. And I think a lot of that, Jack, is because entry to the first corner, and looking at the times from yesterday, it wasn't everybody that was able to achieve all of the 3 sectors together. Some of them were able to do sector 2 and 3 on the push lap, and then their next lap were quicker again on the first sector. And so it's all about trying to get the tyres and the fronts up to temperature in preparation for that long turn 1, 2 and 3.
Hey, attention all teams from race control, just so you're aware, the panel
reset
at turn 2 is under failure, and it's actually showing red, but it is not correct. So please ignore the panel at turn 2.
Scott
Elkins,
the light panel,
excuse me, the light panel.
The race director saying that one of the light panels, there's sort of digital flags around the circuit as well as marshals with physical flags, and the one at turn 2 is flashing red, but ignore that, we're good to go. I once got told off in the British GT pit lane in about must have been about 2011. It was raining, so I put up a British GT brolly and stood by the sort of entry to Paddock Hill Bend, and the marshal said, no, you can't have because it was a red and black brolly, and they were like, no, you can't have that, people will think it's a red flag. So I wasn't allowed to wear a brolly, I just had to get wet.
So I'd like to know if that's the only time you've ever been told off in a pit lane, Jack. I would suggest probably not, but I do understand, because as a driver you are looking at things going past at 150 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And so you just see things out your peripheral vision, and it's just maybe a colour, and if somebody then brakes because of it, and someone else is right behind them, then you can have an incident, even though it was for obviously it was good reason, because it was raining and you were only trying to keep dry.
It was British GT Brands Hatch, obviously it was raining.
I don't think we're going to have that problem today. Not many brollies out, maybe for the sun, not for the rain.
I always get told off for having soft drinks in the pit lane. If I quite hot on that sometimes.
Well, they prefer hard drinks.
yeah, exactly. Have some whiskey if you're going to have a drink in the pit lane. Anyway.
Do it correct, but no, you've got to be careful. In the pit lane is obviously quite a restricted area, and the circuit even more so. So fundamentally, I think you're best in the comms box. I think that's your area of expertise.
Well, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Less than 15 minutes to go. Buemi goes quickest on a 1:06.311, a 10th quicker than Jake Dennis. So solid lap that from the Envision driver. Is he on a double push now? Feels like he's backed off after coming across the line. So no double push for Buemi. Gunter's just done a fairly quick sector 1, as has Nick Cassidy, as Sylvain Filippi, Cassidy's boss, and Mike Lugg on the right-hand side. Watches, this is Pascal Wehrlein in the Porsche, and he is, well, he's on a push lap, I think. Yeah, he's 3/10 down in sector 1, but he's got quite a bit of traffic here as he comes down to turn 5. Dennis has done a quick first sector, as has Sam Bird. Here's Verline's radio.
Try push now.
Copy.
Florian Modlinger, the team principal of the Porsche squad. Let's see what Verline's middle sector is. He's 7/10 away, so not a hugely rapid lap incoming. Mortara goes 4th quickest, and actually 17th quickest yesterday for Pascal Verline. So got a bit of time to find on the 1-lap pace.
Oh, Dennis just popped in fastest lap, so it's now Dennis, Buemi, Cassidy. Top 3 as Verline comes across the line. And a very good first couple of sectors from Dennis.
So Verline only goes 12th fastest, 1.3 seconds away from Dennis as he comes down into the first corner. Fenestraz jumps up into 10th position. Just a little over 20 minutes to go. Nato in the other Nissan goes 5th.
Sam Bird, very good first sector as well. Equalled the fastest so far being Jake Dennis.
They have extended the session, by the way, so that's why we've now got 20 minutes and 15 seconds to go. The session extended by a little bit. And by 7 minutes, thank you for that. I couldn't do that mental maths in my head. Well, where else would you do mental maths, I suppose? Buemi 2nd quickest, Cassidy 3rd, Van Dorn 4th, Bird there in 5th position. Here comes Da Costa, first sector for the Portuguese. He's 3/10 down after the first 2 sectors. So not a bad lap incoming for Da Costa.
He was very good yesterday, Antonio, and he was able to get all of his sectors together in one. A little bit wide in the last corner, but good exit, actually. He was able to pull it back. Evans goes quickest.
Da Costa comes through, and it's 5th quickest for him, fractionally slower than Pascal Verline. Both of those two finding quite a bit of time in the final sector, because Verline was a bit further away than he ended up to Evans, but found time in the final sector. Buemi now jumps back to the top of the time, so here are the two Andrettis running right together on circuit. Dennis not on a push lap this time around, and Lotterer is not either. He's down in 13th place at the moment. Two Andrettis. Here's Dennis's radio.
Push running, we need to focus sector 3, okay?
So focusing on sector 3, they're running very close together here, the two. Now Dennis will back off, but there's a car ahead of them as well, which is one of the... well, no, he won't back off. So maybe they are experimenting with the toe here, or finding out how much it's worth. Let's see, coming down towards turn 1. Yeah, he's lifting and coasting.
Huge lift and coast. This is race, anyway. And so it's trying to see where he is. And as you say, that's Andre taking a very wide line and cutting back. I think later on today there's going to be a lot of lift and coast, just because the energy management requires quite severe here, which is a positive thing for us, because it'll mean that there's going to be some good overtaking. But also, I would say that feeds very much into two teams at this moment in time being, or two powertrains being Porsche and the Jaguar.
And here is the Jaguar of Sam Bird, very quick in sector 1. We're on board with him now as he fights the car down into the left-hander of turn 6. Wasn't sure if he was making that, but he did. Over the curbs now into 9.
It's not flat through either of those two.
200s down on Sebastian Buemi. The McLaren pulls out the way. One more corner to go here for Bird. That was too deep.
Yeah. Lost it all there in the final corner.
And a little snap of power oversteer too. So Bird across the line still goes 3rd quickest, but lost a quarter of a second basically in that final sector.
I actually think he lost a little bit more than that, because he was wide going in, didn't make the apex, and also was late onto the power. And so I think that would normally have put him into P1 if Sam had been able to hook up that final corner.
Only driver in the pits at the moment is Jake Dennis. Everybody else on circuit. Jean-Eric Verne through the first sector has done a personal best. He's 4,000ths off Buemi in sector 1. We'll get his middle sector split here as he comes down towards turn 9. He's now 100th away from Buemi. See if he can hook up the final turn at turn 10. Driver's eye with Verne. On the power and out towards the line.
Oh, a bit of oversteer there, just right at the point when he got out to the wall.
Gets ahead of Buemi by about 9/100ths of a second. So Jean-Eric Verne to the top of the times on a 1 minute 5.6.
And we keep pushing. It will be 300 automatically. Keep pushing at the line.
It'll be 300 automatically, so that could have been a 350 lap from Jean-Eric Verne. Here's Jake Hughes now down into the first corner. His teammate René Rast has just gone 4th fastest.
Clump of the curb there, making a small adjustment as he goes up into turn 5. It's important to get this one because you accelerate through this small kink and then it's a long straight down towards turn 6. A lot of recuperation there, breaking into 6, got the apex nicely. And then through the fast kink. Ooh, big lift off coming into it. It's behind the Maserati. Günther, one of the stars, I think, yesterday. Max Günther, he's won round here, as you said before, in season 6, if I remember correctly. And it was a very strong victory for him. So he understands what it takes to be quick and competitive. Bit of traffic from the app cars, who are actually much better than 18th and 20th at the moment.
Günther's on a quick lap here. Let's see whether he goes ahead of Verne. He does, by over 1/10 of a second, a 1 minute 5.444 for Maximilian Günther. The German, as you look at Jeremy Calanson on the right-hand side, and James Ross is here in the middle. Da Costa on a lap here. 3/10 away in sector 1 from Günther's time. Do you remember when Da Costa and Verline were less than 3/10 off? What was that, about 4 minutes ago? And all of a sudden they're a second off. Verline across the line, 8th fastest. His teammate Da Costa. Van Dorn's done a very good middle sector. Here is Da Costa now into the final corner. That didn't look too neat as he comes through. Let's see where this puts him. Over to 5th place for Da Costa, 6/10 of a second away.
It's in the mix. It's a big time difference, big time delta, but it's still in the mix.
Florian Modlinger, and on the right-hand side, Thomas Laudenbach, who's the, I've committed now, and I can't remember his official title, Vice President of Porsche Motorsport, something like that. I'm now going to get an angry
Thomas
WhatsApp.
doesn't need a title. He's already got his own title.
Maybe it's Managing Director of Porsche Motorsport. No, Vice President of Porsche Motorsport. Yeah, nailed it. 13 minutes and 38 seconds to go. Was he at Audi, Thomas Laudenbach?
Yep. Yeah. Thomas was at Porsche, came to Audi. He was actually there at the very early start of the Formula E project. A very early start, and then moved back to Weissach. And he's been there for quite a little while with the build-up of the LMDH car and also this latest project. And I think was quite an architect in taking Florian Modlinger there as well.
Lotterer across the line to go 5th fastest in the Andretti. Again, he looked a lot more comfortable yesterday than he kind of has all season, to be perfectly honest, Andre Lotterer. Up to 5th place. He qualified 4th in the opening race of the season in Mexico City, but since then hasn't qualified higher than 15th. Here's the Sascha Fenestraz Nissan coming into turn 6. What has he got up to in the first sector? He's 4/10 down on Günther in sector 1. Personal best though. Middle sector, he's half a second down. But this has got a chance of a top 10 from Fenestraz, who's another driver who, when Nissan hired him, you go, oh, okay, bit of a left field choice. Looks solid enough, but really proved himself, I think, so far this season.
I think when we're talking about left field choices, what are the straight choices that you would normally take for Formula E? Because it is quite a unique characteristic of car and also racing series. And certainly, I don't think there is a very obvious choice where you go to for that. Like René Rast, for example.
Yeah.
A DTM touring car. In fact, I think it was about 8 years between his last time in a Formula or an open-topped car and when we threw him in. Or Kelvin van der Linde, when we put him into the rookie test, he had never sat in a single-seater car before his seat fitting.
Yeah.
And both of them, I think, were very, very strong straight away. So to me, I'm not 100% sure that your traditional route of a single-seater is the only place where you would look for a driver for this category.
No, Van der Linde was impressive when he got into the Abt race car as well a little earlier this year. Muller goes 13th fastest in the Abt.
Nico's another one because he did World Super Formula and then into touring car, and now along with these guys, Mr. Biermeier on the right-hand side there, and
Herr Biermeier to you.
Yeah. Very tall Biermeier, that's for sure. But I think there, Nico Müller is, my personal opinion, is someone that will have, if he gets the right organisation with him, in which I think Abt are, and by the time they get the car sorted out, then he'll be very competitive.
Van Dorn returning to the pit lane. Gunther still quickest at the moment. Jay Penske here on the right. Oliver Turvey in the middle. Gunther having a change of tyres. 10.5 minutes to go. Lotterer and Bird have just been through the pits. Gunther sits in the pit lane. I think I started to make this point yesterday, but then we got derailed by something. But the Michelins previously, all about trying to cool them down. You'd kind of do everything and there were lots of things in the rules that you could or couldn't do, and teams were always trying to push to put the tires in the shade, or to, you know, anything you could do to cool them down. The opposite is true here. They're doing everything they can to try and retain some heat. You're not allowed tire blankets like in other series, but they're sort of, you know, I think I read a report that there's some teams have sort of like plastic lids almost that they're putting kind of over the front of the car to try and retain any heat possible.
Yeah, the tyres were designed for a slightly different requirement.
Yeah.
And that's with the increased power. It's also with faster circuits as well. We're going to significantly different circuits with Formula E now than what it was maybe in season 5, 6 or 7. And so therefore there is a different need from the tyre, but that also has an effect as well. If it was significantly warmer, like in July, then maybe they wouldn't have to try to look for these things. But the rules are very, very specific. You're right. I had a quick look at them while coming here, just to remind myself of the sporting code, and it's very strict on what you can, or basically it says what you cannot do, which is pretty much everything. You can put your air in the tyre, and that's kind of view of your limitation. And certainly no devices that are to retain heat or control the heat of the tyre or the rim.
And Hankook have been saying that some of the teams, it's not quite a 50-50 split, but there's a big difference. Some are running the lowest tyre pressures allowed, and we've seen quite a few, especially in free practice sessions, technical infractions for running pressures too low, as Evans goes up to 6th fastest. But some teams apparently are running tyre pressures really, really high, and there's a real divergence on how to get the best out of them.
Yeah, but there was with the last generation as well. In general, that was more when it became wet, what you did with the tyre. But here in the dry conditions, 1.2 bar is the minimum tyre pressure, which is monitored by the FIA and also Hankook at all times, so it cannot go below that. And you were correct that there was quite a few penalties early on in the season, with people probably exploring the limits in free practice sessions a little bit too much. Because historically, the lower you go, the more mechanical grip you have. But by the same token, you also maybe slow your tyre temperature build-up. But the other thing to remember as well is the camber on the tyre, and also the toe in, toe out, whatever it may be. And so it's not just about the pressure themselves, it's also how the whole car is working together. And the important thing from the driver's point of view is two things. One, it is clear grip, and the second one is balance of the grip, front to rear. Because what you don't want is the front to be biting and turning into the corner, and the rear just can't keep up. Or alternatively, rear solid as anything, and it understeers all the way through.
Okay, that's interesting, yeah, because here's deGrassi's radio.
Split 2 for next push lap.
I was sort of broadly under the impression that, generally speaking, the lower the tyre, you run the tyre pressure sort of as low as you can, really, is the kind of general rule. But so you're saying the more pressure you have in it, the easier it is to build temperature. And so in a tyre that struggles to build temperature, if you build the temperature quicker, then you'll get more grip than having the lower pressure, potentially.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you a caveat on that. It depends on the construction of the tyre.
A Daniel caveat.
Yeah, Daniel caveat, who's going to be driving and the rookie test as well for Neo. But I think there's a lot of caveats, but as you say, a general sort of rule and a general feeling. For me, the camber is the interesting part, because there's a wide variation on the Hankooks of the maximum camber, how much the tyres can basically be vertical or tilt in. And that gives stability to the car, but it also generates a little bit of feeling for the driver as well, who can lean on the tyre a bit more, who can then, and by default from that, it then builds its own grip as well. It's not sliding over the surface, it's gripping into the surface.
Fascinating. Have you ever thought about being a team principal?
No. That's engineering, and that is definitely not my bag, that's for sure. I've got a little bit of experience from driving and sort of, I would say, 30-odd years of it, but I would leave engineering to other people.
Right, here comes Dan Ticktum then. He's in the Neo 333, coming into turn 6. His first sector is about 3/10 down. His middle sector split will come in a moment. It's still Max Günther quickest on that 1:05.444 that he said about 10 minutes ago. Personal best in the middle sector for Ticktum. So he's just a little under half a second away. 2 more corners to come as he heads up into the final turn now. Onto the brakes, through the left-hander of 10, and out towards the line. He and Sede Camera doing personal bests in the middle sector. Ticktum goes 9th fastest. Sede Camera, we've got the running clock on him down in the bottom right, and he comes across the line. And it's 14th fastest for Sergio Sede Camera. Only a 10th slower, well, less than a 10th slower than his teammate, but that's the difference between 9th and 14th at the moment. There's the Neo gang. I think you could even without having the team radio faded up, I feel like I can hear Mike Henderson in the background, his unmistakable tones. 4.5 minutes to go. Stoffel van Doorn, personal best in sector 1, gets a little bit balked going into the final corner. And it was one of the Mahindras, I think it was Oliver Rowland, who's back out on circuit, by the way. He has only done 7 laps. Everybody else has done about 20, but he is back out on track at least. Van Doorn didn't improve. Oops, someone going very deep. Dennis going very deep into turn 1.
This is going to be their last laps, obviously, before qualifying, so you want to do 2 things, really. One, as a driver, you want to feel where the limits are, especially in those big, deep braking areas where you're going to gain lap time. But the other thing is to follow the latest evolution of the circuit, because the sun's now up, and local time it is coming up towards 9 o'clock in the morning. So in that respect, it's only going to get hotter from here towards qualifying.
3 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Jake Dennis, after that moment at turn 1, complaining on the radio that he's got no grip anywhere from the tyres. There comes the Jaguar through. There's side-by-side further back. Verline here is currently 12th fastest. He's a second down in sector 1, so he's done a personal best in sector 2. So he's on a push lap here, Verline. There's maybe an error in that first sector. Bird's done a reasonable sector 1, as has Lucas de Grassi, actually. Only a 10th slower than Günther in sector 1 for de Grassi.
Verline coming across the line.
1.3 seconds away, but lost a second of that in the first sector. So sectors 2 and 3 a bit more promising for him. What's Robin Freintz been up to? No good, I imagine. Oh yeah, there he is. Second spin of the weekend for Freintz.
He spun yesterday at the hairpin at turn 9, just a slow loop around.
He joins the circuit now, 21st quickest, still trying to get back up to speed. Dennis returns to the pits, and Lucas de Grassi went 5th fastest in the end after that pretty good first sector, so that's encouraging for Mahindra. Da Costa has done a personal best in sectors 1 and 2. He is just over a 10th slower than Günther. This could be top 5 here for Da Costa. Currently 11th fastest, and it's 3rd. 1 minute 5.6, 2 minutes to go. Yeah, that's all right, thinks Florian Modlinger. It looks really cold, doesn't he?
Yeah, but Verline, if he hadn't had the second loss, would not quite have been at Da Costa, but he would have been maybe half a tenth behind him, so in the top 5 as well. So really 3rd and 5th is not so bad, because you've got to say that in race pace, I think they'll be very strong today.
1 minute and 40 left on the clock. after the session got extended due to a red flag, thanks to Roland coming to a halt at turn 1, seemingly with a mechanical problem. 2nd and 4th at the moment for the DS Penske's, Verne and Van Dorn. Now, what's Ollie Roland up to? He's 6 tenths away in the first sector, 9 tenths away after the middle sector, so should be an improvement here for Roland, but he's a little bit behind the curve because of that lack of running.
You hear the tyre as he turned in to the final corner, just not gripping and sort of skipping across.
And he doesn't actually improve his lap time in the end. Oliver Roland stays last on a 1 minute 6.892. 45 seconds remaining. Gunter quickest, Verne second, Acosta third, Van Dorn fourth. No one's on really huge push laps at the moment. They might all be about to start them, so
36 seconds to go, Jack. So anybody that is not in the last couple of corners isn't going to make it anyway.
Bird a 10th away after the middle sector. Cassidy is improving in sector 1. We're on board with Bird. Everybody up ahead of him getting a little bit loose. He goes in fairly deep into the final corner. Again, there's always that little twitch from so many of the cars, isn't there, when they seem like they're sort of mostly through. He finds a bit of time, Sam Bird, 7th fastest, 3 tenths away from Gunter. But once again, those DS and Maserati powertrains that are quite as similar look strong, but Cassidy jumps up into 2nd place.
And
very encouraging.
But it wasn't a very good first sector, really. It was a tenth and a bit off. But the last sector was purple. He's quickest of anyone in the last sector.
Checkered flag is out. Gunter has done a good middle sector here and might improve on his own personal best time. Through the final corner now, out towards the line. And we'll see what Gunter can do. Does a 1 minute 5.301. Finds another chunk, and he's going to end this session about a quarter of a second quicker than anyone else. And Mitch Evans.
We've got car 9 on driver's right, just after turn 3. Please obey the flags.
Mitch Evans has pulled over. That's concerning. Robin Freitz is throwing it into turn 5. You can see him fighting with it all the way in, all the way through the middle, and then all the way out. And I'm not expecting this to chuck Freitz up the order. No, remains in 21st position. So the yellow flag is out, checkered flag is out also, and it's going to be Gunter who's quickest. So the DS team and the Maserati MSG team, they sort of share the same kind of original powertrain, and then they both develop it in their own way going forward is sort of the theory. It's not quite the customer manufacturer relationship that like a Jaguar and an Envision have, for example. So, but whatever they are, they're looking strong here. Jean-Eric Verne going in deep at 6.
Yeah, just overtaking, going in too deep, and trying not to lock up and make the apex. The lap had already gone. And yeah, he's a little bit of frustration about someone looking at the attack zone, doing a practice through there, because that's a time loss, and you want to understand exactly what your time loss is going to be. As we get a replay of Sam Bird just pulling off after the checkered flag. Evans pulling off after the checkered flag as Sam Bird just passes him there, and that's at turn 3.
Red lights on his dash, reports Mitch Evans.
So a bit of a deja vu situation now. Max Gunter top of the timers. We saw it in testing. He's been quick so far this season, but what is it going to take to convert this now into race pace points and maybe even more?
I mean, we've had a difficult time this last few months, but we've come back really strong. I think it's solidified the team, and we're going to see a good upside, I would say, now from all the hard work that all the guys have put in. Max seems to be on great form this weekend. It's home race for him, and he seems very confident here.
So, but we've seen this pace before in the past, but it hasn't worked out in the races. You know,
okay, team managers from race control, just be aware that car is still...
A clean weekend. It's that simple, a clean weekend.
Excellent, thank you, James.
A clean weekend. That's all Rossiter wants. Easier said than done, I imagine. It's been a real tough time for Rossiter, having taken over as team principal there. His first time in that role. Some practice starts coming on. How? This is going to be such a stupid question, I know. Here's Gunter's radio.
I've got an alarm, a wrong one. Puncture front left, so no problem. But
yeah, you can ignore that, just noise.
So Gunter's saying he's got an alarm. I'll save the stupid question for a little bit later. But let's have a look at the results, shall we? After the second free practice session, once again, Maserati looking quick. Max Gunter fastest on a 1 minute 5.301, a quarter of a second ahead of Nick Cassidy. Jean-Eric Verne in third for the DS Penske team, fourth for Da Costa, fifth for Van Dorn. Buemi, De Grassi, Bird and Lotterer, and Evans, the top 10. So all 4 Jaguars in the top 10, 3 of the Stellantis-powered cars in the top 10, only 1 Porsche, and that is Antonio Felix. Oh no, sorry, 2 Porsche powers in the top 10. Very encouraging lap for Lucas De Grassi as well in the Mahindra. Just missing out on the top 10 with the Neos, Dan Tixon and Sergio Sede Camera. About 7/10 of a second off from Max Gunter. The McLarens and the Nissans not looking particularly quick. A few early flashes of pace from the French Nissan drivers, but ended the session 17th and 19th quickest, and Oliver Rowland missed quite a bit of running due to a mechanical problem earlier on in the session. So, a strong performance from Jean-Eric Verne, third fastest in the DS Penske. We have seen on many occasions this year, though, DS Penske looking good in practice, but not quite able to put it together in qualifying. That changed last time out with Stoffel Van Dorn taking pole position. Verne was second on the grid in Hyderabad and fifth in Cape Town, so it looks as though they're getting their 1 lap pace hooked up. Not quite as hooked up, though, as Maximilian Gunter. But yeah, Alan, when James Rossiter says we just want a clean weekend, how easy is that to implement, or is that just luck, or is that something you're doing wrong within the team?
Oh, I think the reality is if you are doing all your job and everybody doesn't make any mistakes, it's all clean and tidy, you get a chance of a clean weekend. If it's a bit frantic in the garage, then obviously that amplifies on circuit. And but it is a difficult one when you get into the qualifying. So if you don't qualify in the front row, you're not in control of your destiny into turn 1.
Yeah, and if you're not on the front row, it's tough to have a clean race, I guess, in Formula E.
Yeah, definitely in Formula E. We can see that by Jake Dennis in the last 3 races. Twice have been taken out through, in what I expected, no fault of his own. Anyway.
Oliver Rowland then having a lock-up in the early stages. Looked as though it was a bit of a mechanical as he ended up in the barriers down at turn 1. It was Dan Tixon's view of it, and that brought out a brief red flag. The session got extended subsequently. Jake Hughes right up behind the Maserati. Dan Tixon just missing out on the top 10 at the end of the session, in 11th spot. Jean-Eric Verne fighting it all the way into the first corner. Some side-by-side action as everybody tried to find a little bit of space and get some clear track. Tixon again, this time going around the outside of a McLaren, down into the hairpin of turn 9. But Max Gunter ended the session fastest, a 1 minute 5.301 for the German at his home race. Well, I think he's moved to Monaco now, isn't he? I think he's moved to Monaco, yeah. But born and grew up in Germany. And at his home race, he's looking strong for a strong qualifying performance. His best qualifying performance so far this year. Max Gunter is second on the grid in Cape Town. I think he's also not had a pole position in Formula E, Max Gunter. Yes, he's got the record actually for the most races without a pole position. 57 for Max Gunter. Will it be 58th time lucky? We'll find out in about an hour and a half. Make sure you join us for qualifying ahead of round 7 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. And that will be getting underway at 10:30 local time. We'll see you then.